So first of all, I would like to thank the Nordic Pet Food Seminar team for making this event possible. Of course, I miss you a lot, guys. That would be so great if we could interact with each other and network like we used to. But nevertheless, we are here, and I'm very proud. It's still again a great thanks to Julia and to Milka and to the whole team. So today, we are going to speak about highly purified beta-glucans from brewers yeast and its positive effects on immune system in dogs. First of all, I would like to take the opportunity of this presentation maybe to also give you a little bit of insight of who we are at Liber, what we do, and how we do it, because when it's about beta-glucans, this is also very important to talk about how you process your product, because this will create and give you the right biological activity you're looking for. So at Liber, it's a German company. We always say we have some kind, our DNA is a bit of like our yeast essence. This is so unbelievable to see that with this little organism here that we have in front of us, we have in fact a lot of functionalities that can answer to the pet food market expectations and also containing so many valuable nutrients. For example, just with these yeasts, this Saccharomyces cerevisiae, we can provide palatability by using, for example, yeast extracts, and we are able to enhance the palatability. We are able to color products. We are able to mask taste and so on. Another asset that is great with this organism is that it also has an excellent digestibility. We know that the protein of the yeast has a very great digestibility. It also contains mannanoligosaccharides that will promote beneficial health for the guts with a nice microbiota effect. Then we have also a lot of health nutrition ingredients or nutraceuticals. I was just mentioning about the moss, but we could talk also about the beta-glucans, the vitamin B, and so on. And of course, if we are cascading, this can also lead to many very interesting veterinary applications. There are so many areas where yeast can help. I'm talking about, for example, dermatology. It's very well known that it's promoting a nice, shiny hair coat. It's also very well known that it can help for animals that in convalescence when they have a decreased appetite and we want to stimulate it. It's very interesting also for many digestive issue and so on and so on. And last but not least, I would say that thanks to yeast, we can also promote something which is, I think, very crucial for the pet food business, which is the sustainability. Indeed, we're collecting those spent yeast from the breweries and we transform those spent yeast into highly valuable products. So I think that we are by essence or by yeast essence, a sustainable company here at Liber. To give you a little bit of, what's the story behind. So it's 65 years old company, which has been founded by Franz Liber. And he created in 1954 the brewing process company, Franz Liber. Then a few years later, he created something very interesting because he was already working with his parents who were into agricultural trading. And he had the idea that eventually brewers yeast could contribute to what he calls some kind of an unknown growth factor. So 10 years later, he came up with a patented process, which is called the gentle drying process, where he was combining fibers to yeasts. And then the story kept on. In the late 80s, a new headquarter was founded in Bramsche in Lower Saxony in Germany, and the commissioning of the yeast extraction plant was done 5 years later. Then Liber bought a Polish plant, an old dairy plant, and he built also very close to Bramsche, his new site, a new production facilities. First of all, another plant in Russia, and then in 2010, a commissioning for a spray drying tower in Enter, which is very close to the historical site. The number of employees increasing a lot and tremendously during those years. We are today now around about 250 people at Liber. It's a lot, but it's small, but it's allow us also to be very flexible. In 2014, we commissioning of a spray drying tower number 2 and expansion of the high rack house. Then in 2017, it was the commissioning of the spray drying tower number 3 with a capacity of 1 and 2, and also our brand new yeast extraction plants. And today, this is where we are. So we have 4 production sites. As you have understood, we have 2 in Germany, 1 in Poland, and 1 in Russia. We have a lot of kind of products, and we have 4 segments, let's say. We have a food segment, which is dedicated to the food industry, human, and also to biotechnological application. This is what we call fermentation. I will not talk about that now. We also have some beta-glucan capsules, which are meant for the humans as OTC products in pharmacies, for example. And of course, 2/3 of our business is dedicated to the animal nutrition. So we're not only talking about pet food, but we're talking about livestock, poultry, pigs, and also a very relevant and very interesting market, which is aquaculture, and for which also our beta-glucans are, I think, a real asset. Before we really focus on the beta-glucans, I want to show you what the kind of products we're doing at Liber. We do a lot of things. But basically, this is what we do. We do pure dried yeast, 100% Saccharomyces cerevisiae that could be either spray dried or roller dried, and we can make it food grade or feed grade. This is a bit like our, let's say, commodity that you can use as a carrier or that you can use for your formulation. Then we also have, and this was the first traditional product that Liber has created, we have brewer's yeast bound to fiber. Then we've got brewer's yeast cell walls. I think most of you all are very familiar with cell walls. We're talking about the mannan-oligosaccharides and beta-glucans. We have also brewer's yeast autolysates. Those are natural hydrolysates. And then we have the brewer's yeast highly purified beta-glucans. And we have a portfolio of around about 300 different kinds of yeast extracts. And the purpose of today is really to focus on our yeast highly purified yeast beta-glucans. So you have to understand that at Liber, and what makes us specific, I think, is that sometimes you will hear that at Liber we're doing real brewer's yeast, meaning that in fact our raw material, which is, as you can see here, a food grade, GMO-free raw material, we are collecting those spent yeast. Now, it's not the purpose to show you the whole process here, but what I would like you to understand is that we're only collecting the spent yeast from the breweries who are in line with the so-called German purity law, or in German, die Reinheitsgebot. Sorry for my German accents. What is it? What is the German purity law? Basically, the German purity law ensures you that we are only working with 3 ingredients: barley, water, and hops, and of course, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This German purity law there are many, but the most important was enacted in 1516 in Bavaria, I think, and the purpose was really to fight against and avoid any competition between the bakers, and the competition was really hard for wheat and rye, and this is why we decided to use barley only, so it allowed the people to pay their bread at affordable price. Now, of course, there is also some sort of religious conservatism, and to avoid that, we would add any fancy plants such as, I don't know, root or belladonna. This is also one of the reasons why this German purity law has been enacted. So when you look at this process here, you can keep in mind that we are only using those products. And at Liber, we're collecting here what you can see in red. We're collecting also the mold sprouts that we can use, for example, for our combined products when we are linking the malt sprouts to yeast. We are also collecting the spent grains or bruised grains, and we are collecting here those spent yeast, those yeast cream. Okay, this is here just to give you a nice illustration of our main units in Germany. So here on this picture above there, you have this 4 spray drying 1, 2, and 3 or warehouse, sorry. And here, which I highlighted, this is our yeast extraction plant. Why am I showing you that? Because we're talking about highly purified beta glucans today, and this is where we are collecting our highly purified beta glucans. This is here another picture of our plants. We won't be, of course, able to show you the whole process in details because this is part of our know-how. This is in Germany, despite the blue sky and the very nice weather, which is very rare, I have to say. And this gives you a good idea of what it looks like. So once we have collected those spent yeast cream, then they are going to be stored. They are going to go through autolysis. So it's also very important that you understand here that we are not adding any acid to stabilize or to trigger the autolysis. And it's going through the whole process here, this yeast extraction process, where basically we are isolating from one side the cell wall and from the other side all those yeast extracts. We are able to make different kind of yeast extracts. It could be paste, could be powders, could be liquids. See, here, this is more to give you an idea of how it works. So you have here on the left the brewer's yeast cell. So you can see here the cell with inside the yeast extracts, those nucleotide, those peptide, and so on, this RNA, DNA material. And after a certain time and at a certain temperature, so we have this natural autolysis, then you can see that the membrane and the cell wall of the yeast starts to be partially decomposed. And this is the moment where you can see that due to this permeability, yeast extract starts to go out of the yeast, and using a centrifugation process. This is here, of course, very simplified, but that's the principle that you need to keep in mind. We can from one side collect all those yeast extract, and from the other side, we can have those yeast cell wall, and then by further enzymatic decomposition and another centrifugation process, we can isolate from one side the manoproteins and from the other sides are highly purified 1,3,1,6 beta-glucan. We're going to talk about the biological activity now with highly purified beta-glucans, but I would like to point out here that this is extremely important because we think that if you're looking for a biological activity such as immunology or immunology modulation or stimulation, we do think that the extraction process is very key because he will keep this native molecular shape, which is very important to stimulate your immune system. So we think at Liber that we have worked on this and we are able to provide very, let's say, biologically active beta-glucans and very reliable over time. So at the end, this is here just to show you a little bit like what the composition look like. You can see here, so you have here on the left a pure dried yeast, brewer's yeast, and you can see here our highly purified beta-glucans, and we are up to more than 80% of 1,3,1,6 beta-glucans, so very highly purified beta-glucans. Now, for those who are, I guess probably most of you are using beta-glucans or in their diets, most of you know a little bit about beta-glucans. What are beta-glucans? Huh? So basically beta-glucans are polymer of glucose. It's a little bit similar to cellular and starch. They are naturally occurring and produced by a wide variety of organisms such as algae, bacteria, yeast, cereals, and also fungi. Now, why are those beta-glucans interesting? It's because they can play a role from an immune standpoint. Indeed, most of those beta-glucans are produced by potential pathogenic organism. This means that when the animal is seeing that kind of particle and molecule, it can be associated to some kind of a potential infections. And over evolutionary time periods, this means that those beta-glucans could be used a little bit, if I could say, like a natural signal that will stimulate and modulate on a good way the immune system. What is also very important, and this is what I was saying during when I was talking about the yeast extraction process and the highly purified extraction process, is that, of course, you don't need to be a chemist major, but you see that the structure and the molecular structure is very important. If you take, for example, algae and yeast, you can see that this is 1,3 glucosidic bonds. So the glucose molecules are attached at 1 and the 3rd carbon. And this is precisely on those formats, on those 1,3 line that's the immune cells will recognize. They have receptors. There are many different kinds called dectin-1 or CR3 and so on. And they can recognize certain pattern on those 1,3 glucose chain. I think it's around about 5 molecules of glucose. And therefore, they can then stimulate the non-specific immunity and cascade on the non-specific immunity. We think, and this is the reason why we think that algae, yeast, and fungi are very interesting for to sustain the immune function. If you take, for example, other beta-glucans, like for example those that we can find in oat and barley, you will see that the structure is not the same. We're talking about 1,3, 1,4 beta-glucans, and those are more used as a energy source, and they could be relevant, for example, to deal with issues such as cholesterol control and glucose control, and could be interesting for digestive health or cardiovascular health, for example. So you see here, once again, very important, depending on your structure, the biological activity will not be the same. Very quickly, let's go through the mechanism of action here. You can, if we talk about pet food here, so we will talk about ingestion via the mouth, sorry, then this will go, your beta-glucans will transit through the stomach, and once they will reach the small intestine, they will link to those, gut-associated lymphoid tissue at the level of those M cell, microfold cell. They are going to be absorbed. Then we will have those macrophages and other phagocytic cells that will recognize those very specific pattern of beta-glucans, and they will absorb them, they will take them up, and at the same time they will destroy them. They will produce different pro-inflammatory or cytokines, and they will stimulate or activate, let's say, the lymphocytes and other cells, which is the the specific immunity. Now, at Liber, we think that from the moment, and I think this is not only at Liber, but in pet food generally speaking, once we want to prove or demonstrate a functionality, we need to use some kind of a, let's say, testing. And of course, we are in the pet food business, and we know that it's very important to always being able to develop an alternative to in vivo testing. Even though in vivo it's always very good, we always want to stay in line with animal welfare. And we decided to work on an in vitro method to measure the, let's say, immune effects of our highly purified beta-glucans in dogs. So we have worked with a company called Provax, which is a company spin-off of the Vet University of Ghent in Belgium. And basically their job is that they are analyzing many different molecules and have developed in vitro methodology to measure their biological activity, like for example, in our case, the immune effects. So this is a little bit how it works. Of course, here we have 30 minutes to discuss about beta-glucans. So of course, we will need to focus on a certain topic. Now, just to remind you, once a pathogen is sampled from the intestinal contents, there is a local immune response in the intestinal mucosa, and which is triggered in different steps. At first, you have those phagocytic cells and macrophages and also dendritic cells that will recognize those pathogens with certain receptors. They will take up those pathogens, they will destroy it using enzymes and oxygen radicals. And this is here what we call the non-specific immunity. And we will measure this phagocytosis, this taking up, this absorption using a test called superoxide and O radicals. Then we know that also those cells will secrete cytokines that will stimulate the activation, and also they will present those pieces to the T cells, and they will stimulate their activations and also the cellular proliferation of those T and B cells then in a second step, which are much more prone and fit to attack specifically those pathogens. This is what we call the specific. So you see here the purpose and the results I have summarized for you. We are going to focus on how a highly purified beta-glucans can show a nice non-specific immune response based on this test. We will not go into details about inflammatory signals and the cytokines, even though results are very interesting. It's a very complex discussion. It would take much more time. And then I will show you also the result for the specific immunology response, which is based on the proliferation of B and T cells. At first, we were very happy to see that both specific and non-specific immune response was stimulated thanks to highly purified beta-glucans. As you can see here on the table 1, we can see here, for example, on those 2 beagles, because we worked on in vitro canine cells, that's compared to a negative control, which is called HBSS, we have clearly a dose-dependent effects on here the phagocytosis, or the production of those reactive oxygen species, or those ROS. And so that's very interesting. So we could say here that yes, indeed, highly purified beta-glucans in canine cell stimulate the non-specific immune response. As you look now on the other side, on the figure number 2, this is also very interesting here. So this one is about the percentage of the lymphocyte proliferation, which is, as you remember, an indicator of the specific immune response. And this is also very interesting here because you can see that compared to figure 1, we have used a positive reference, which is one of the most known commercial MacroGuard solution that you can find on the market. And interestingly enough, here you can see that when we were using high dosage, this inhibits the lymphocyte proliferation, at least for the positive control. So maybe, you know, we could think about an overstimulation of the immune system. And of course, this is not what we're looking for. This is very important and very complex here, that to say we don't want to inhibit the system, we don't want to overstimulate the immune system, but we want to be in some kind of a balance when we can just prime the system. You know, sometimes inflammation is good, sometimes anti-inflammatory actions are good, and this is precisely what we're looking for here. So depending on the specificity of your beta-glucans, also depending on the dosage. But this would require more discussion here. So those are the results in a nutshell. I have here showed you also what kind of inhibition regarding cytokines we can expect. But keep in mind that our highly purified beta-glucans have demonstrated using canine in vitro cells that we can stimulate the specific and non-specific without any inhibition of the immune system, as we have seen, for example, with these very well-known and common highly purified beta-glucans that you can find on the market. Now that we have seen this in vitro study, I would like to present this study, which I think is also very, very interesting, which is the effects of beta-glucans on the severity of IBD. IBD, for those who don't know, it stands for inflammatory bowel disease in dogs. So this is not a disease, it's more like a syndrome affecting the stomach, large intestine, and small intestine. You can compare it a little bit to, I would say, the Crohn's disease in humans. So basically, this created lesions, inflammation, colitis, enteritis, and so on. And of course, this is causing a lot of discomfort for dogs, as you know, this means diarrhea, frequent vomiting, weight loss, and so on. And this is a study, and I'm very happy there is this study, because as a matter of fact, for those who would like to explore that a little bit deeper, you will see that you do not have a lot of literature on beta-glucans in dogs and in cats in vivo. And this study has been done by a Polish team, Ryszlik, in 2013. And the purpose of the study was to see, you know, how 1316 beta-glucans and other classical treatments such as levamisole or the beta-hydroxy beta-methyl butyric acids could, you know, how this could improve or how this could, you know, help in the treatment of IBD. So he used 28 dogs who were split into 4 groups of 7 dogs, and they followed the dogs with the treatments over 42 days, and after that they took blood samples and made some examination. And they were following also some blood parameters like different cytokines and interleukins, and also making some histopathological examination using endoscopy. And of course, they were also scoring the evaluation of different clinical symptoms, which is based on a scoring called the CIBDI. It stands for Canine Inflammatory Bowel Disease Activity Index. So basically this scoring is gathering different observations such as the activity level, vomiting, stool frequency, stool consistency, and so on. And based on those occurrence or not, you have a score. When it goes from 1 to 3, then it means it's totally insignificant. When it's over 4 until 5, you've got a mid IBD. That over 6 up to 9, you are at quite a moderate IBD, and over 9, this is like a very severe inflammatory disease. So here you can see 4 groups, 1 control group, 2 groups with classical treatment, and 1 group only using 1316 yeast beta-glucans. And the good news, and this is a little bit like the cherry on the cake, is that this Polish team has used our product, which is Yeast-Immune or highly purified beta-glucans. Now let's have a look. In fact, the results are really great, and I think they speak by themselves. So by using 7 milligram per kg of body weight, we observed that we had a very, very fast improvement of the CIBDI. It's not indicated here, but you can check by yourself in the study. It's also indicated that we have the best improvement in terms of histopathological lesions. We also have a strong decline of pro-inflammatory interleukins, and we have absolutely 0% of recurrence within the 6 months. So I think that this is a very interesting study showing that here just using those 1316 beta-glucans, you know, without using classical treatment can really help the conditions and, let's say, the prognosis of those inflammatory bowel disease in dogs. Now, what about other species? As I have mentioned, we're not only working with dogs and cats. We have at Liber acquired a lot of experience about many other species. We are very successful, for example, in aquaculture, and we've been doing, and that's not the purpose of today, but we have been working and we have been partnering in promoting and publishing many studies about aquacultures, but also about livestock, about oo, about calves, and also human. So what about us? So as you know, we are also mammals. So this is not the purpose of today's presentation, but we know that, for example, and this is also what we do at LIBOR, we are producing those, you know, yeast-immune here, those little bugs, you can see it here. And we use it because there's a lot of study showing that a daily ingestion of beta-glucans can definitely be interesting if you consider, for example, respiratory disease such as flu. There is publication showing that when you're using beta-glucans, this decreases the flu episodes, this decreases the frequency of the flu episode, this decreases the duration of those episodes, this is also decreasing the recurrency of those episodes. This is why, considering this crazy context, actually, I have to tell you that, yes, in 7 months, I'm taking beta-glucans. I'm fine so far, but this could be definitely an option here. I would like to give you some take-home messages. So here, before we live, the specificity of our beta-glucans is that they are highly purified 1,3,1,6 beta-glucans. So you know that the 1,3,1,6, if you've been listening to me, are the ones which are very interesting for the immunity. Then we have a brand new yeast extraction plant which has been commissioned in 2017. So all our beta-glucans are manufactured in the same plant using a very highly advanced technology,
97.
beta-glucan extraction. And this really allows us to preserve this biological native structure. This means a greater biological activity. And this is really key here, because if you're destroying, if you're affecting the molecular structure, then you are somehow affecting the exposure of those pathogens, which are recognized by the immune cells, and therefore you don't get and you don't have this immunomodulation effect you're looking for. I had the chance also to share with you that, yes, we have seen that our highly purified beta-glucans are able to stimulate specifically and non-specifically the immune response using this very innovative in vitro model using canine cells. And then we had the chance also to see the effect on IBD. You can use beta-glucans, which has a GRAS status, to treat such annoying and discomfortable pathologies such as IBD that you have in dogs, inflammatory bowel disease. And last but not least, I would like to point out the fact that we are not facing any overstimulation that could inhibit the immune systems. Therefore, no pulse feeding is required as you can need, for example, with other competitors. I think it's time for me to stop here. So I would like to make myself available for you if you have any questions. And I also would like to take the opportunity to tell you that in November, we are launching a new range, new taste based on yeast extracts to enhance palatability and providing many functionalities. So we will talk about that later. This is called New Taste. You have my email address down here. So please don't hesitate to send me any comments or questions, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you, Thomas, so much for your wonderful presentation. We all enjoyed it. Really, really nice and well done. Thank you.